The first point that I would like to make is that when it comes to Daniel chapter 8, where we find verse 14, up to 2,300 evenings and mornings, and the sanctuary will be cleansed. This is the second key text in this last great controversy in the Adventist theology in the 1980s. The first was Hebrews 6:19 and 20. Daniel 8:14 is the second most important text here. So, when we deal with Daniel 8:14, one of the problems that Adventist theologians had was the day-year principle. Why? Because those who were critical of Adventist theology, they were saying you are using outside text, outside of the book of Daniel, and you apply this on the book of Daniel. This would be a kind of eisegesis. So they were telling us it is not exactly the best possible exegesis, but it would be much better to find in the book of Daniel itself this principle year for day. So I'm happy to tell you that in the last maybe 10, 15 years, this principle was found in the book of Daniel itself. Daniel chapter 8. And of course, one of the key texts in order to understand verse 14 is Daniel 8:13. And the text says, "Then I heard a holy one speaking, and another holy one said to him, 'How long will it take for the vision to be fulfilled?'" How long it will take for the vision to be fulfilled. And the Hebrew word used here for the vision is hazon, hazon. How long it will take for the vision to be fulfilled. When two heavenly beings are talking, in verse 13 that I just read, and one heavenly being is asking another, how long it will take for the vision to be fulfilled? Hazon. That same word, hazon, is used at the beginning of chapter 8, because it says, verse 1, "In the third year of King Belshazzar's reign, I, Daniel, had a vision, hazon, after the one that had already appeared to me. In my vision, hazon, I saw myself in the citadel," and so on and so on. And the third time, in the vision, I saw besides the, and so on and so on. So that word hazon, when one heavenly being, in verse 13, is talking to another heavenly being and asks how long it will take for the vision. And then another heavenly being says up to 2,300 evenings and mornings. But if we read the beginning of chapter 8, it is clear to us that that word hazon is referring at least to two kingdoms. And you know chapter 8. I'm not going to read them. It is referring to Medo-Persia and to Greece. Are you with me? You know what I'm talking about? Okay. Let me say it one more time, because there are many theology students here. So, if you say that 2,300 days equals literal days, it cannot work in the context, because the Medo-Persia, you know, we don't need to go how long it lasted. It cannot fit. So the context itself is forcing us to accept the fact that 2,300 days cannot be literal days, but they have to be a symbolic time units. Are you with me? This is the first point. The second point. So, in order to use a literal language, he could just have said, up to the 6 years, 4 months, and I don't know how, I'm just inventing, the sanctuary will be cleansed. He did not need to use 2,300 evenings and mornings. This is the second point, telling us exactly that Daniel is not using literal language, but he is using a symbolic time units, telling us that one day means 1 year. Let me give you another example. This is not the only case. If you apply the same principle for 1,200, what, 90 or 6, I don't know. But another prophecy, you remember what? He could have used, if he was using the literal language, he could have said 3 years, so many months, but he didn't do that. He used a symbolic language. And let me give you something that all of you know. You know when he says that the time given to the little horn is 1 time, 2 times, and half a time. So it is clear that Daniel is using a symbolic time units. We are not importing now this principle from Ezekiel chapter 4 or Numbers chapter 14, but we have this principle within the book of Daniel itself. This is a very important point. In addition to that, some theologians are saying that in Daniel chapter 11, I'm not going to read this, but I can tell you, for you who are eager to understand, when Daniel is not using the symbolic language anymore, he used the term years, for example. Chapter 11, verse 6. After some years, they will become alive. Then verse 8, second part. For some years, they will leave the king. Then in 11:13, and after several years. Here, obviously, Daniel is not using the symbolic time units anymore. He is using a literal language. So let me summarize this first part one more time. So the principle which for many years we as a church, 1 day for a year, that we were somehow importing from the book of Ezekiel and the book of Numbers, now Seventh Adventist theologians have discovered that it is found in the book of Daniel itself. So this is a very important point.